All right, we are live. Guys, welcome back to another episode of The Deep End. Hope everyone had a great week and hope everyone's weekend is off to a great start. So stoked to be back with you guys for another episode. Ari, first and foremost, before we move on and go any further, how are you doing over there? Looks like you're ready to join the Blue Man Group with that background.
Playing around with some lighting. Ryan, I'm doing great, man. It's been another exceptional week. And
Good.
I'm looking forward to what this week actually has to bring for us all as investors. On Friday, I don't know about you, but I went a little gun-ho on a shopping spree.
Did
I
you do
think
it?
I threw in like 8. No, I didn't cross because the market dipped. But
Okay.
should the market bounce back, which it will, I'm going to soar right past that $400,000 mark. And I'll tell you why. I threw around, give or take, $8,000, maybe a little more, into strategically 3 positions. One was the tech fund. A vast, chunk of that just went right into the tech fund. And then I divvied some up into both NVIDIA and Alphabet. So I'm very bullish on all of these plays, which, by the way, if you want to take a look at my entire portfolio or Ryan's entire portfolio, download Blossom. And, of course, the Deep End is powered up by Blossom. So twofold there. But, Ryan, did you do any buying on Friday, or were you just staying put
No,
watching?
not on Friday. I've got about $770 sitting in cash right now in my brokerage account, ready to be put to work. I put it in there. I put about 1,000 in there early this week. I think I bought either Monday or Tuesday. I picked up some Vici, a little Zoetis, I think a share of Watsco. I think it was more than 1,000 that I put in then if I bought those 3. But anyway, I bought those 3 early in the week, and I was kind of just watching things the rest of the week to see if I wanted to continue buying. But I kept seeing things go down, so which is good. I'm fine with that. And so I just decided to hold off on buying. I just figure if it's going to keep going down, I might as well wait a little bit and get the shares that I'm going to be buying with this cash a little bit cheaper tomorrow. Hopefully, then I'll be able to get them today. So I've got some cash ready to go. Even outside of the brokerage, I've got even more cash that I can put to work. But I will say, let me actually pull up my portfolio real quick because I want to tell you where I'm at tell all you guys where I'm at when it comes to hitting that $4,000 of projected income. So right now I'm sitting at 3,948. So we are $52 away from hitting that goal. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, no doubt. So we're right there. And actually the portfolio with all this buying, even though things have come down a bit, the portfolio value is at an all-time high right now too. We're at about $116,000. So all in all, man, things are going great in the portfolio. Real quick, before I forget to mention this, Fast Eddie did want to know, what are we discussing today? We're discussing whatever you guys want to talk about. Since we're live, I mean, drop any investing questions, anything that's on your guys' mind, drop it here in the live chat, and we'll go through it here in this conversation. But anyway, going back to
a little bit more spicy. If you got any financial hot takes, drop those in the commentary as well. Ryan and I can hash through that.
I've got a hot take question for everyone in the chat.
Oh man, I didn't mean from you, man.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, then I'll hold off.
Go for it.
I was going to ask, and this is impossible to predict. So there's really no telling, but what do you guys think? Let me know in the chat. Are we going to see, we're starting to see some whispers of that maybe percolating, but do you guys think we're going to see a serious pullback in the near future? It seems like the whispers are kind of like that's what people are anticipating. Maybe AI things are cooling off, and maybe that's partly why we're seeing, the pullback that we had seen this past week. But what do you guys think? Is something kind of like what we saw in April? I think it was April earlier this year, about to happen. Are we due for another one of those? Let me know your guys' thoughts on that in the chat. And Ari, actually, quick question for you. I guess for both of us, but this one was from Patrick, who asked this before the stream. He wanted to know, this is actually top of mind, I think, for a lot of us creators, but he said he's interested to hear our thoughts on the YouTube warnings on all the financial influencers lately. A lot of channels getting hit. Do you see yourselves doing anything different on your channels, including here in the deep end, due to those warnings? What do you think about that? Because that's been quite a problem lately.
Yeah, I read Patrick's comment when I scrolled up, and I was reading through a few of them just before I circle back to Patrick's. I got to say there are some funny comments in there. Just scrolling through them, it made me laugh. They always make me laugh when I pop on, but the immortal words of RALFG
Yeah.
make me laughing. And then yeah, Fast Eddie just saying, what are we talking about today? And I'm happy you already covered that and saying that it's up to everybody else out there what we talk about on a week to week. But in terms of Patrick's comment, this one hit me hard, because the honest truth on my end, and I hope YouTube is listening. I got direct words for those at YouTube, because I had a Masters of the Market chat go up, and it was taken down within maybe 3-4 hours. And YouTube had claimed that what was alluded to in the Masters of the Market chat was illegal activity. And there was a claim that was made from YouTube against, my channel. I got the strike that I was encouraging illegal activity. So naturally, I went ahead with my rebuttal, and they declined to post the video, and whatever. It dragged on a little bit, and I went to, I want to say, YouTube court, and I made my case, and when I made my case, I stated my case to them. I said, please quote where I had encouraged illegal activity or where my guest had encouraged illegal activity. And they said, sorry, we can't do that. We don't do that. And I said, okay, in which case that makes zero sense. Imagine going to court and the opposing lawyer presents his or her case, doesn't tell you anything, and then the judge makes a decision. And they were like, valid point. We'll email you in a couple of days, like 48 hours. I never heard back from YouTube. A little disappointed. As someone who's been a creator on YouTube now for a few years, and nowhere had I encouraged illegal activity. I'm very, very cautious with what's mentioned on Masters of the Market. I'm extremely cautious with who I bring on, avoiding people who make pump and dump statements in the first place. Don't want to be connected to those channels. So where am I going with this? On one end, I like what YouTube is doing, that they're starting to monitor what's being said. On the other end, having been now falsely accused of something without them providing me any evidence. And by the way, I would have, should I actually have mentioned something, or the guest had mentioned something in the transcripts that they can point out, I would have easily have deleted that part of the video, or I wouldn't have put it up. But I really, working on Wall Street, I mean, it's not possible, right? There's other eyes that are also watching my channel, and for YouTube to get me on something financial related is just crazy to me. So yeah, I definitely applaud YouTube's efforts to step it up, because I do think, unfortunately, there are channels out there that are full of it. I think there are channels out there with the creator that is producing content strictly for money, and it's hurting retail investors. On the other hand, I think we have, creators. I'll speak for us, Ryan, and others that I know are truly in this game to help retail investors. We're doing our best to do just that. And I think the AI bots that I know YouTube is using, because they openly shared that with me, are not exactly perfect. And so it's going to hurt some creators, as it has been. And I know a few of us have been pretty hurt by that. Ryan, I don't know if you've had any strikes or if you've been in the YouTube jail, but it's not fun.
No, knock on wood, not yet. It hasn't happened to me. I know it's happened to Nolan a couple of times. I know it's happened to There's a channel I watch called The Patient Investor, really good channel. I'd highly recommend watching him if you guys don't already. It's happened to him a couple times. The Dream Green Show. I love the Dream Green Show. It's happened to him a couple times. It's happened to you now. It apparently, according to Owen, it's happened to the dividend diplomats. So it's becoming a real problem here in our space. And I agree with everything Ari said. On one hand, it's good. On the other hand, it's not really accurate. Like there's a lot of people undeservingly getting flagged for kind of ridiculous things or really no things at all, nothings. So I think that's a problem. It's still early stages, and I think so. When these things happen, it's AI going through it, and then when you try to counter it or have it reviewed, a human being then looks at it, and I think because it's
Ryan,
becoming
I don't know. I don't know about that. My experience with YouTube really has proven just a lackluster experience. And they may claim that human eyes are I don't know how deeply human eyes are really going through everything, because although they said that to me, human eyes checked and verified, you still can't provide me with any evidence, any quote, nothing, anything. And so I then said that to them, and one of the remarks that was messaged back to me was, first of all, they then escalated my claim, but second of all, essentially they had shared with me, well, if you can go through your own transcript and send us the areas that might have been like dodgy. And I'm like, I don't think there are dodgy areas. You're the ones claiming that
okay.
there's something encouraged, right? Illegal activity. So it doesn't, I don't know. I want to have good faith in YouTube, but from my experience, man, like I said, go to a courtroom, any courtroom, and they don't, you don't just seat someone down and not let them present their case, go the whole trial without presenting any evidence. That's crazy.
That is crazy. And I know some of the other people that this has happened to, they were able to get human eyes on it. And upon doing so, in some cases, it was able to be reversed. In other cases, not so much. But either way, what I was trying to get to was I think it'll become enough of a problem that they will really work hard, hopefully, to make it more accurate or just stop doing it altogether because it's too much of a problem that they can't fix. So I don't think the issue that we're seeing right now is permanent. At least I hope not, because it's very wonky. I'm hopeful that it'll change, but it does suck right now when you're going through it, especially when your channel does become at stake, because when this happens, you get a strike, and that strike can be removed, I think, depending on the outcome of when they look at it, if they look at it. But after 3 strikes, your channel gets taken down. So I think that's really the scary part about the whole thing. Now, the other part of this question was, what are you guys doing to try and, I don't know, like protect yourselves from that? I know that one thing that I'm definitely being mindful of is the titles and thumbnails, just trying to keep things kosher, keep things above board, nothing too outlandish. Which from what I've heard from other people, that's one of the big things that they're looking at is the titles and thumbnails. And so that's something I'm trying to be mindful of. I also started putting, I'm sure you guys have seen this, and Ari's done this too. I started putting a disclaimer right at the front of my video. Like the first 15 seconds are just a quick disclaimer, just the usual stuff, just to cover the bases there. So those are the couple of things that I'm doing. Outside of that, I don't really know what else can be done because, it is kind of out of your hands, unfortunately. That's one of the risks of I guess doing this as a job is that is something that is outside of your control, and that can be scary. But it's not all bad because, like Ari said, it does kind of force creators across the board to kind of just temper it a little bit. And I think that is one of the issues we've seen, especially over this last year, these last couple of years in the finance space here, on not just on YouTube, but on the internet as a whole. There's just it's getting pretty wild. So it's getting pretty dicey out there. And the
Look,
things that people are doing in the titles and thumbnails to try and stay competitive, it just kind of keeps moving the goalposts to a point where in a lot of instances, it becomes pretty ridiculous. And so I'd like to see that being tempered a bit.
look, it's kind of like the police, nobody,
Love the police, Sting, the whole
I was
band.
going to say, nobody
Oh,
likes the police until they need the police, Unfortunately, I'm a fan of backing the blue for sure. And, even again, if I did something illegal, by all means, like
Well,
that's a done deal for me. But
y-
when you don't have the appropriate mechanisms in place, like I said, to find that quote or whatever was said in my video, I got one video a week going out these days, and I got to be honest, man, when I got the strike, my heart broke because I
oh,
was like, wow, I produce one video a week and I see in the comments of the Masters of the Market chat how much people enjoy it. I saw one comment that came in that was like, I started watching the video and then I went to go work out at the gym and then I came back. It's not here anymore. And I was like, I just felt like I let down my viewers, man. And
mhm.
I don't care about the video. I just care about remaining true to those who are walking with me. And that sucks that I feel like I couldn't deliver to those who are perhaps enjoying those videos or learning from those videos. Again, everything else that comes with my YouTube channel, even this, man, Ryan and I, for those of you who don't know, we started doing this because we had a talk one night where we were just like, hey, what if we just had like chats every week and let people into like the real deal of what we're doing and how we're feeling, in the week to week about the markets and our portfolios. Like, let's just be more transparent. Like, how can we be there more for investors? So I got to say, man, I don't care about, monetary means and all that stuff with YouTube. I literally, my heart broke because I was like, I feel like I just let down viewers. And there's no worse feeling than that, man.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I will say to your credit, like as far as doing anything illegal, at least you stopped doing the backyard turtle racing operation. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of that would
I,
get you
I
into
thought they
trouble.
were
But
onto me.
yeah, but now that you've ceased that, I don't see what the problem is.
I bet. No, I just picked up a few dogs though instead.
There you go. Um, but anyway, let's switch gears, man. Let's get off this dreary subject. This was a comment a few minutes ago from Fast Eddie. I think when we were talking about what we were buying and stuff like that. But Fast Eddie says if you're waiting to buy because you think the price is going down, that is not dollar cost averaging. Uh, any thoughts? Any reaction to that? All right, what do you think? Dollar cost averaging, not
Um,
is that even a problem?
the problem, dollar cost averaging, you think?
Or not, trying to buy individual companies at the right time. Is that a it's
No,
not
I
dollar
mean, look,
cost
there's
averaging,
there's
but is that
different,
a
there's different strategies that are out there, and I think it's worth being aware of. Some people want to go with like the modern portfolio theory and dollar cost averaging to catch those. To catch everything, the ups, downs, everything in between, to ultimately over the longer span of time, um, as it's been proven in that theory, that you'll make out. And I think it's a fine strategy. There are other strategies that are out there though that do require one to have their eyes on the market and watch it a little bit more closely, maybe pour a little bit more in than you would just a whatever your X dollar cost averaging amount is per week or per month or however you're strategizing that way. I personally am one to watch the market, obviously, and invest a little bit more heavily when we're on that downswing. But I don't think if you choose to dollar cost average, then dollar cost average. Buy on the when the market's green, and buy when it's red. Don't even think twice because you're in it for the long run. I think it's a fine strategy, and I think more people should be doing that.
yeah. No, I get that. And I think when it comes to dollar cost averaging, at least how I do it in my portfolio, I will dollar cost average every single week into, VOO and SCHD into the ETFs, rain or shine, up or down. I'm buying the same amount of those funds every single week. In my taxable account, I do it a bit differently, which is all individual companies. I'm contributing every single week into my brokerage account. I'm transferring the same amount of money, but into which positions that money goes can differ depending on what I'm choosing to focus on at that point of time. So I'm dollar cost averaging into the portfolio, but not into each individual position. And I think that maybe this, because we always hear time in the market versus timing the market. You should time in the market is more important, and I certainly agree with that. But I will say dollar cost averaging into into the market, into something like the S&P 500, or even dollar cost averaging or timing. How do I say this? Dollar cost averaging into ETFs is a lot different than dollar cost averaging into individual companies. And I think when it comes to individual companies, it's okay to be a bit more selective when you buy them. Like I'm not buying Williams Sonoma right now. I'm not buying Snap on right now. I just don't think it's the best time to do so. And so even though I'm still dollar cost averaging into the portfolio where those stocks are held, that money is going into other things where I think it's a better time to buy those particular assets. And that's how I try and differentiate the two.
Right. Oh, I thought I lost you.
Oh, no, you
um,
good?
yeah, man. Um, on my end, you kind of like froze a little bit, so I was waiting. I was like, "Is he finished?"
Oh,
But yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you. I yeah, look, I think that at the end of the day, investors need to invest, and whatever that means to you, do the job of an investor if that's what you're claiming to be. And I think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves, and we just think too much. Naturally, as humans, we need to do less thinking. And I think the less we think about X and Y, and this and that war is going to impact, and the government shutdown, that's like, it's crazy. There's so many factors that play a role into economics and the market at large, that if you listen to everything and you try to do everything perfectly, you'll do nothing, because it's just impossible. But investors invest, and dollar cost averaging will deliver that win to you, over the span of time.
yeah. And with that said, to your point, I think it's probably fine to dollar cost average, especially if you're investing in dividend paying companies that will pay you that cash flow the same amount per share, no matter what the share price is across a long period of time. If like that's why you're buying the stocks, it's probably going to be fine. It's probably going to work out just fine. But still, if I can take advantage of what I think are better opportunities than others, that's what I'm gonna try and do. And it seems like, jumping over to the chat, we've got a few people I think sharing this same sentiment. Danny says, my ideal of dollar cost averaging is to add X amount of money per month and try to pick my spots throughout the month, but that money goes into the market no matter what. Um, Brian here says, I do really like that idea of dollar cost averaging for index funds, but picking timing a little more for single stocks. And Lashinsky right over here more or less says the same thing. Watch the dips on individual companies. What does Nathan here says? He says the person with 11 shares of Apple that's down 20% on their shares is always ahead of the person, always ahead of the person. Oh, I see. With 10 shares of Apple that are up 200%. Maybe just in terms of the number of shares, I suppose.
There,
Oh, yeah,
Ryan,
because
there's a comment up there. I want to just highlight it. It's actually, since I read it, it's just
it's
been
been
like,
gnawing at you.
yeah, marinating. It's
Okay.
by Vasco
Okay. Let me
Durante.
find it.
It says,
Yeah.
this is ironic. In my entire academic life, I never heard a professor talk about money. Now I'm starting to lose the freedom to choose how to learn. I This might be a bit of a bit of a hot take on my end coming out now. First of all, I want to say to this comment, what a shame, that we don't hear of professors and, in academia enough about money and personal finance. And, I do think that is by design. I do. There is every opportunity and more for all of us to learn, whether it's through reading, trialing and erroring, or just meeting people who are, within the industry. But the unfortunate reality is the vast majority of us won't learn because it's not taught in schools. And I do think there is a bit of, who holds the power in this world are those who have wealth, right? Access to power is just being really a mover and shaker when you have wealth. And it's just pretty interesting to me. I think about this often. you think about any hedge fund manager or anybody with the vast amounts of wealth, and what tables are they usually seated at? Um, so I think we all have an obligation. We owe it to ourselves to learn, and even if it's not taught in schools, to be here on a chat like this, or to mingle with friends who are interested in bettering themselves, professionally, personally, financially. But there's a reality out there that in order to be a power player in this life, I mean, you got to be financially fit. What do you think about that, Ryan?
I could not agree more. And I think it extends beyond just ourselves. Yes, we do this for the pursuit of a less stressful and a better life for ourselves, but also our families and the generations that come after this. We've been talking about this, I feel like, more in some of these recent episodes, but this is really a multi-generational thing. This is an infinite game in the sense that the decisions that you make today and the seeds that you plant today will grow into a tree that you can sit under someday in the shade, but also, your kids and your grandkids, and hopefully, the generations that come after them. And hopefully with each generation, they can learn to be good stewards of the wealth that they have either created or inherited. And I think it's our responsibility to learn that for ourselves, but also to pass that down or pass it around to others around us. So I couldn't agree more. And I actually just finished reading a book, really, really, really good book. And I'd recommend any of you guys to read it. Ari, I think you'd like this one too. The Richest Woman in America. It's about this lady named Hetty Green, who was basically the female Warren Buffett back in the 1800s and early 1900s. And what she did is she received like a small inheritance from her family, and she took that, a woman during that time, she took that in what was basically like maybe about $1 million, and throughout her lifetime she was able to turn that to $100 million. But then she also along the way taught, I don't know if both her kids, but at least her son Ned, to be a good steward of that wealth as well, and he was able to then build wealth of his own, but also whatever he inherited, he was also able to be a good steward of that too. And I think it's since been passed down from there. But I think that's and sidebar too, the wealth that she amassed for herself allowed her to sit in the room with the likes of the Astors and the Vanderbilts and the Morgans and all the big families that lived during this time. And maybe for some people, for a lot of people, that's not really the important part. But the important thing is, yes, you do have a sense of responsibility to better your financial future and become financially fit. In the same way that it's also your responsibility to be physically fit if you want to live a long life. I think, financially, it's part of the whole holistic wellness that you should seek.
Ryan, do you think this is an even hotter take?
And I have a question for you on this whole subject too, once we get through this, but go ahead.
Yeah. Do you think we're getting weaker these days?
Oh gosh. Yeah. I think it's easier than ever to be distracted. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Video games and TV and I mean, I love social media. It's part of our jobs for sure. So, it's important to us, but that's also a problem as well. I think that really is the root of it. I think it's distraction, and comfort. It's things that you want. You can DoorDash your food. You don't even have to leave your house to get your food. Back in the day, people used to have to travel miles and hunt for their food, and nowadays it can just show up on your doorstep. So yeah, I definitely think we have we have the means to be weaker, and yeah, I think we're seeing it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think about this all the time, and I work, with a lot of people, in various capacities, struggling with various things. And, for me, a lot of the times I'm just like, this is so weak. There's just, I feel like, man, there's a lot more complaining and a lot less doing these days, and I've had a few acquaintances of mine that have been out of work for a bit of time. And when I kind of look at like what they've been doing and their overall attitudes, I just feel like it's like a whining and like, why me versus this sucks, but I'm going to get through this type of attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that, that comes in financially with individuals as well. I
Yeah.
feel like, oh man, I was listening to a Matthew McConaughey podcast the other day. I love Matthew McConaughey, the man. But he was like, someone told me I was full of it. And he was like, yeah, wait a second there. No, I'm sorry. Someone told me I was full of myself. And he goes, well, who the hell else am I supposed to be full of? You know? And I just love the way he kind of prospectively thought about that. Because I almost feel like if you talk to people about money, and they shy away, they're intimidated, or they think, I don't really think this is the reason why people won't bring it up. They think you're egotistical. But I actually think what it is it makes them look in the mirror. I think sometimes when, like me and you, for example, or others who are on YouTube, or across Blossom, you're talking about your portfolio. You're talking about how size matters, if you will.
Yeah.
And, and people really, man, I mean, it's like they don't want to talk about it. And then all of a sudden you're, all bravado and ego, and look, he's boasting about his portfolio. It's like, no, what I think it is, man, I think we just are getting weaker and weaker. And I'm just hearing a lot more whining from people. And I go back to like, my grandfather's generation. And I'm like, there was such a difference in how people went through life. When you didn't have the money, you went to work. You didn't whine and fetch about not having money. Like, and I don't know, man. I just feel like everything I've been seeing lately too, whatever side of the freaking aisle you sit on, I don't really care. I feel like there's just an objective reality that when you're in a not so great position in life, it's up to you to get yourself out of it. When you're not where you want to be financially, it is up to you to get yourself out of it. Now, will there be different roadblocks and mountains to climb for various people? Yeah, of course. But welcome to freaking life, And I just like, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to give up, or are you going to get through it? And I don't know, man. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And it goes hand in hand with people, not hearing about finance in school. Okay. No one's ever been here. No one's learned about finance in school, but pick up a friggin' book. I don't
Yeah.
know, man. I'm just getting
No,
me
I
going.
I totally hear you, man. One story and then one question for you on the finance and school stuff. Uh, so a couple days ago, I got this email from someone who read my newsletter this week, and he was telling me that he had some recent situations in life where he basically had to liquidate his. I don't know if it was him. I think it was his entire brokerage account. He had to sell it all, pay for some expenses. He was in a kind of a cruddy situation. Um, and on one hand, he said he was feeling pretty bummed about that because he'd made such great progress in his portfolio. And I totally understand that. But I was really proud of him because on the other side of that, or on the other end of that, he said, but you know what? I thought about it for a few days and I decided this is actually a good thing because I've been wanting to make a change in my portfolio, and having to kind of liquidate everything, kind of out with the old, has given me the fresh start that I think I needed to maybe change my approach and do things a bit differently than how I was doing them before. How I was doing them before was fine, but I think I can do it better moving forward. And he said, I don't think I would have made that change on my own if it wasn't for having to sell out of all of my stock. So on one hand, it was a bummer to kind of lose that progress, but he said I actually feel really good about it now because I can start over from scratch, going in a new and hopefully better direction. So I thought that was a really great way to look at it. And it also serves as a reminder that, things, you can look at things one of two ways, the things that happen to you. They either happen to you to your detriment, or they happen for you. And I think the reasons that it happens for you aren't quite clear in the moment, but only become clear with the benefit of hindsight. And I think that's what this individual was saying, especially after having time to reflect on it. So I also think that's an important thing to keep in mind too. Yes, there will be roadblocks, there will be things that get in your way, but those things are there for a reason. And in the grand scheme of things, it sucks in the moment as you're going through them, but um, it wouldn't be, number one, it wouldn't be fun, or it wouldn't be worthwhile if it was easy. But also too, it's going through those hardships is going to make you a better, more resilient person in the end. And so I think you have to go through those experiences if you want to have something worthwhile. If you want to live a good life, it's it's important to go through those things. It builds resilience, it builds character.
Well, also, no one wants to be around a whiner. No one
Yeah,
wants to be
no,
around literally a loser. And what do I don't like what is a loser? It's just someone who gives up on themselves. It's like
yeah.
just what like to be
The
a winner. Winning doesn't mean you're on top of the world and you're a billionaire and the winners just don't give up. And they
Yeah,
just keep going. Like it's an undercover winner.
yeah.
And I just like there's so much. You know, even this Friday, I was thinking to myself, I've been waking up lately at 4 a.m. Just good like 30 days worth of 4 a.m.s,
Yeah.
and I think to myself, like, no one's gonna beat me, and if they do, if they even come close, I'll just die on the hill, like that's my mentality. Now, are there people who probably outwork me? Yeah, I definitely think so, but I would definitely go head to head with those people. And maybe I'm crazy for saying that, but like it's an attitude towards life. I was talking to my dad about something, and we were exchanging text messages, and I said something along those lines to my dad, and he goes, "And that's why you're a winner," and I really thought about that, and I was like, huh, I never
Mhm.
thought about it that way, but it's true, like just when someone wants to write a book, it's one thing to say I want to write a book, and then it's another thing to just start writing. When someone
Mhm.
wants to run a marathon, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to just start running. When someone
Mhm.
wants to become a millionaire, it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to just start investing. And just start doing the things that a millionaire does. I just, yeah, I'm having trouble these days when I'm thinking about
Well,
how much
it's
whining and complaints are out there.
I think it's gonna get worse as time goes on because you'll encounter more, and there's always gonna be people like that. And so, you have to try and not let that impact you. I totally know where you're coming from, but um, try your best to not let it make you too frustrated, because there's just people like that. There's this, and unfortunately they won't change, but there's this video. I think it was most random video where it was talked about, but it's this video with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Back in the day, he put out a workout program, his blueprint to mass, with a company called Muscle Farm, which was a big supplement company. And it's this whole series of videos, but in that series of videos, I don't remember the context, but he's talking about someone, kind of like someone that we're describing right now, someone who's maybe a complainer or a whiner, or sees the world as happening to them to their detriment. Um, and Arnold's impersonation of that person, I always laugh when I hear it, and my wife and I always like quote it to each
Can you
other.
do the accent?
Oh, 100% I'm going to do it. I'm totally going to do
Yeah.
it. I was just setting the stage. So in the video, he's talking about this person. He becomes this person. He says, "The day I feel down a little bit, I don't know what it is all about. I don't know my life. I'm confused."
That's
And
pretty good,
so
man.
so every time, thanks, dude. And so every time, we hear someone complaining or we're referencing someone like that, that's always what we go back to. Today, I feel down a little bit. I don't know what it is all about. I don't know my life. I'm confused. And so it's just kind of a funny way
Give
to
it
even
up
if
for
you're
Ryan. I mean,
even
that's a really good
honestly, well, even
impersonation,
because
man.
I get that way too. I think we all get that way sometimes. Maybe you don't, Ari, but like in my household, we get like that sometimes. And whenever that's going on, one of us can say to the other, we can quote that, and then it's just an easy way to shake it off and be like, you know what, you're right. Just drop it. It's no point in kvetching about it. Just deal with it, whatever it is.
Yeah, dude, I will tell you this. This is my truth. I'm really, really hard on myself, as you might be able to imagine. I don't have days where I'm like, oh man, like I have days where it's more like you are just not good enough, dude. So what the hell are you gonna do today that's gonna up the ante? And that that was a switch at some point in the last, whenever I again 8 or 9 years ago, I made the decision to literally start living my life as if I was literally a CEO, of which I am, of my own business, right? And that
Mhm.
requires you to play differently. But it's just become more the more intentional I've gotten in the last 8 to 9 years of the journey that I'm on, the more that I've just had this like very loud voice within me that's very tough on me, and I know I can be direct with others, but for anyone who thinks I'm harsh or direct or tough on others, just imagine me talking to me. Like I was texting with my friend Angelica the other day because I had messaged. We always exchange like Instagram messages or whatever, and send the reels and all that good stuff. And I sent to her. I forgot what it was, but then I said like, "But true." And I sent her a voice. And I was like, "True story though." Uh, I I just took like some financial test, and I man, throughout the past week, like I've been coming up a little bit shorter than where I wanted to score, and I just like the day before I was on the phone with my brother, and I was like, I need to stop, screwing around, and like just enough, And I was like, I know when I'm at my peak state. And then I messaged, I'm sorry. And then I took the exam again on Friday morning. And before I took it, to give you a little, example of what my crazy thinking is, wake up 4 a.m. and I'm like, what the hell is the matter with you, dude? Like you are either gonna show up today or there's 0 point in even taking this exam if you're not going to show up like the person you are supposed to show up as, and then I went with the walk with my dog, and it's like this voice is getting louder and louder, and it's just like, dude, enough, of being pathetic, you're weak. and
Oh my
and then I
gosh.
and then I and then I take the exam, and I scored freaking like I never scored something way over the mark for myself, to the point where when I looked at what I scored, man, I teared because I was like, I knew you had it in you, So, and then I messaged Angelica and I explained I was like, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. I gave her the whole rundown of everything. But the point is here, man, I don't have the days where I'm like, oh man, like this sucks. My days are either like, yeah, it's good, all is great, or dude, you need to freaking level up. It's your time to level up again. And I know there's probably going to be people in the comments and even here in the chat, oh, Ari's too hard on himself or he's crazy, whatever. I've read it all before, but the reality is it works, and it works for me. And I think everybody needs to find what works for them. It's kind of like a David Goggins mentality. I don't think, Ryan, a lot of people can handle a David Goggins mentality. I think like 90% of people cannot,
Yeah, I'm one of
but
them.
for me, it freaking works. And I love it, man.
Yeah, I'm certainly one of those people. Not to say I don't get down on myself or hard on myself, but I also try, like in those moments, I also try and zoom out. Like I'm not where it's a balancing act, dude. At least for me, it's a balancing act. In those instances, in feeling like I'm not where I want to be today. You know, maybe I thought I'd be farther along by this time, but and at the same time, it's like, gosh, man, get out, stop doing that. Like you have a great life. You are, you know, so much farther along in the journey that you're on today than you were this time last year or even 5 years ago. I say it all the time, but like if you would have told me 6 years ago I'd be doing this, like what I'm doing as a job and have the portfolio that I have and doing the things I'm doing, I never would have thought that. And so I always try and go back to that and think, man, it could be so much worse. Like, yes, there's still a lot of work to do. There's always going to be a lot of work to do, but progress is being made. And I know for me, that's the thing that I try and focus on. But with that said, you know, going back to, and I still have a question for you. But going back to what you were saying earlier about being, you know, the CEO of your own business, but you also talk about being the CEO of your life. I think that is something that we should all really take to heart, because if you think about it, each of us here watching, each of us, you know, in the chat here and everyone tuning into the replay or listening to the podcast, we all can be that CEO of our own lives or of our own business too, because we all have our own portfolios. And if you think about it, what you're doing in your portfolio or our portfolios is really not that different than a Berkshire Hathaway. This is your own version of that Berkshire Hathaway. And to be able to manage that, maybe you're just starting out too. Maybe you don't have a large portfolio, so it's maybe hard to make that comparison. But rest assured, like someday, if you keep at it, this portfolio, and I know there's shining examples of this here in the chat, in watching right now or listening right now. Someday that portfolio is going to grow to become not just 1 million, but probably 2, 3, 4, maybe even more millions and millions of dollars you will be dealing with. And not everyone can do that. You need to train yourself to be able to take that on. It kind of goes back to what we were saying, being a good steward of the wealth that you have and the wealth that you're building. It's not something that you just naturally stumble upon. It's something that you have to work at for a long period of time. And so being the CEO of your own life, being the CEO of your own business is a constant work in progress. And it is something that we can and should all work toward right now, improving at, because someday it's going to require probably a lot more fortitude down the road than it does today. Managing multiple millions of dollars is not the same as managing your first 1,000, your first 5,000, your first 10,000. So, you know, this is something that you will have to work at for the rest of your life. And maybe that sounds daunting. I personally think that's exciting. I think that's one of the most fun aspects of all of this. So I look forward to that challenge, and it's fun leveling yourself up and making progress in all of these various ways.
Well, man, that's to the point, you know, I was making earlier, where it's like you are gonna need to manage millions and millions of dollars. You know, it's not sunshine and rainbows, man. You know, to manage a business, to manage actual, you know, P&L statement, like you need to level up. If you are not going to level up, man, I'd be scared to be underneath your leadership.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a lot of people, like, not their money might be growing. They may be taking on some more responsibilities. They themselves are not necessarily leveling up. You know, I like to listen to the guys, really, Alex Hermosi. I love David Goggins, because what they talk about is so real. Very, very few people can, one, relate, and two, understand it. Very few people, but or even a lot these others, the Mark Cubans of the world. We always like to quote these people, but no one's freaking living like them. That's what I've realized, man.
Well, Mark Cuban doesn't, based on our last conversation, Mark Cuban doesn't have enough yachts.
Yeah, not enough yet. No, planes.
Oh yeah, okay, planes.
So what I'm saying though, man, is I don't think Mark Cuban, Warren Buffett, you know, I don't think Alex Hermosi, David Goggins, I don't think they're anybody special. I think they're just like anybody else who wants to go at 110%. Most people won't. Most people won't. And then they're going to say, I always hear it, man. Oh, he's too hard on himself, or he's this. Man, when I listen to like an Alex Hermosi, I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Hermosi, Ryan.
Mm-hmm. He lives here in Vegas, actually.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. So I know his story and from what he shares, and you know, I can relate. I can relate to his stories. I can relate to his upbringing. And I also can relate to the feeling of wanting to just strive for more. And that's what brings him true happiness, you know? So for me, when I take on more responsibility, I don't think life is we're not just here to be in life and to like sit in the beach and like chill out all day and do nothing and get government handouts. And no, we're here to work, and we're here to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves and contribute and just grow and become more every single day. Now, I think a lot of people want comfortability, but growth is not within comfortability. I mean, you grow when you're uncomfortable. You grow when you're stretched and when you're, you know, beaten down to pieces. And it's like, are you going to stay down there? Are you going to get up and grow? You know, think about your muscles. You go to the gym, they tear apart, and then they come back, you know, they heal, right? They're stretched. This is natural cycles of life. And I think that over time, we've just, I don't know, man, just not impressed. I'm not impressed. I'll tell you though, I am impressed.
I haven't heard that phrase for a while.
I am impressed though by the Alex Hormozis and the David Goggins of the world, and I always think it's funny because you get all their quotes and their reels and their memes thrown all over the place, but then you look at the people who are posting them, and I'm like, huh, how are you really living up to the standards? You know, like. And it's fine that people aren't. I just don't complain. You know, I don't think your right to complain goes away. You know, if you're not actually going to attack something at 100%, and that 100%, by the way, is different for everybody. My 110% is way different than Ryan's and way different than other people's. But here's the real question: when you're going at 110%, and people might think you're crazy, are you happy? Are you actually enjoying the journey? That's the real question.
That's spot on, man. You know, we set out on these journeys to get some sort of outcome, to get a six pack, to get $1 million, to whatever it is, right? But in doing so, what you really find out is that the enjoyment is not so much in the outcome; it's in the process. It's in the getting there, and it's kind of funny because last episode, I think it was the last episode, we got what I think is a really strange comment from someone who was saying, you guys are focused too much on, do you remember this comment? You guys focus too much on the outcome. Really weird comment, actually. Focus too much on the outcome.
You never on the process.
Yeah. You know, you never focus on the process and like what it takes to actually get to where you're trying to go. And both Ari and I responded saying like, I feel like we talk about the process, like the getting there is the most important part, and the things that you learn, you know, along the way. That's pretty much all we talk about. And we got some
sort of the show
snarky response. But anyway, I thought that was a strange comment. So anyway, shout out to that person. Today we are definitely talking about the process, and that really is the thing that matters. The outcome is nice, but you know, the process is what really forms you.
Well, look, dude, you know that everybody always wants the results, right? And I think we spoke about this way back when. You know, if someone were to come up to me tomorrow and say, "I'm going to hand you $1 billion," that would be totally unearned, man.
I'd love it, though. I'd love it.
I know.
I wouldn't turn it away. I'm not turning it away.
Exactly that, dude. I'm having trouble sitting with myself, just being like, yeah, I'll just accept the billing. Like, because it takes away something that's such a beautiful gift, which is the process. And call me crazy, but like the process, man, that feeling, right, of being so tough with myself this week and then freaking launching past the score that, you know, I was aiming for because I was that hard on myself. The sweetest victory of life brought the tears. And I was just like, man, this is awesome. You know, like you can do it. So I just think we shortchange ourselves when we're like so focused on the results, not falling in love with the process. You know, it was like running the race, any race, right? You fall in love with actually running, the training,
Mhm.
the days you go out in the freaking rain and your shoes
Oh,
are
yeah.
soaked, and you get blisters on your feet, and you don't want to wake up. Dude, who cares about, you know, the end result, the run? Like, you get there, and once you get to the end result, let me tell you what happens. You go, what's next?
What's next? Yeah.
So it's not about the freaking result. It's all about the process. And what's annoying too to read or to listen to from other people, you know, is this whole like, gimme, 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 I want the result. And I'm like, you couldn't freaking even handle the result, you know? You give someone who can't manage a business in a just efficient business, they'll run it to the ground because they don't understand, you know, what it took to get to that point, what it took to build that. You know, and yeah, that's why. Same thing with money. You know, you win the lottery. Most of the vast majority
Mhm.
of lottery winners go broke. You know, they
Right.
fall into vast amounts of debt because they don't have the mindset built.
Well, athletes too. It's the same thing. But so with that said, this was the question that I've been waiting to ask you. So this whole conversation started because someone made a comment about not learning about money in school, and we just turned that into the last 35 minutes. So hypothetically, like, let's say that you were in charge of coming up with a curriculum. Okay, we're going to start teaching this stuff in school. Maybe it's just going to be a semester. It's going to be a year of personal finance related stuff. What would you do? What do you think would be the most important things for students to know? What are some of the things that you would put in that curriculum? Um, yeah, what would you do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say I would actually add a class as well, aside from the personal finance class, whatever you want to call it, money management 101 or whatever this class might be. And it would be mental toughness 101.
Okay.
Let's get that back in the curriculum first and foremost. And then, you know, and in terms of, you know, a financial class, I think, you know, one thing I would want
Can
to
I can I
implement.
can we pause right here? Because you brought up an important point. It's not just the money side. Like, there's a behavioral side to it. So let's say it's like the class is like everything you would need to know to properly manage your finances in your life. That's the name of
Success
the class.
101.
Success. Okay, what does that look like? And you can combine things that aren't related directly to finance. It doesn't have to be just how to read a balance sheet. It could be stoicism 101, thoughts on that, or mental models or anything like that. Anything that you think is important, put it in this class. Let's open it up to anything that you want. You can put in there.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go back to it. The first and foremost, man, we'd be on this topic for months, is mental toughness. You know, because I really do believe we're just getting weaker by the day, and you just see that through and through. And I hate complainers, man. I hate people who complain all day long. Gimme, 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 and I just would wipe that off from the face of the earth. Nothing in this life is is your right? You work for it. That's just the mentality. That's just the way it should be. You know, you aren't owed anything except an opportunity. And when you get that opportunity, how do you show up for that? So I'd spend some time just on that, you know, and then from there, you know, when you get more into the finance aspects of this course, this success course, um, it's funny because I actually think a vast majority of it actually is just this mindset aspect. But I think growing up from that is because then I want to go into like teaching delayed gratification. That's also kind of mindset. I would want to teach really P&L, you know,
Yeah.
and I would want to run. This would be so insane to do, but just in my head, I'm like, this would be awesome. Um, Maybe like a 1 month challenge where you give people X amount of money X amount of dollars, and you just have them live within their means. You know? But truly, I'm talking about like put them on a friggin' island, you know, and you here's, you know,
Be quite
fifteen
the
hundred
field trip.
dollars. Yeah. Like well, I'm blanking on the name of the show. The Magic School Bus, you know? You
Oh,
get in the Magic School
classic.
Bus, yeah, and you fly over to some island and they drop you off. Here's $1,500. It's almost nothing. It's the exact amount that you would need to survive on an island like this, and then you can choose to invest and make more money over time, or we'll see what happens to your 1,500 if you make it through the month. You know, and it's just like I just feel like again, there's so much expectation that life is just you're owed everything, you know, and it's like I think we all need to get used to this reality here that life is going to be hard. It's not meant to be easy. And once life becomes really easy, you're in the wrong position. You should be definitely repositioning yourself to continue to grow. And just teach a lot of that's mindset though. And the more that I think about it, a lot of it, man.
Yeah, I would agree. I think for me that would be a big component of it too. But I would try and simultaneously like apply it to actual things in finance. So like for example, I'd probably start with just the idea of compound interest. What is it? How does it work? Why is it important? But then the philosophical takeaway from that compound interest, aside like the math stuff aside, which is cool in its own right, but the philosophical takeaway or the emotional takeaway or psychological is the idea of delayed gratification. That's why it works, because you are delaying gratification. So hopefully the math paired with the psychological side will really help it sink in. That's probably like step number one. Then from there, it would be, okay, based on what we know about compound interest, why is it important to invest? What is investing? What's the whole point of investing? What are some different ways that you can invest? ETFs, what are those? Individual companies, what are those? Real estate, what's that? Kind of spend a little time there, and then move into the financial statements, the P&L, the balance sheet, the statement of cash flows, and talk about it as it pertains to both a business but also on a personal level, because your personal budgeting, there still are those three things. You have your income and your expenses, that's the P&L. You have the cash that's either sitting in your account, your checking account, your savings account, or your brokerage account. That's all going to show up on your balance sheet with your credit card debt. It's all going to be on your personal balance sheet. And then once you throw all of those things together, everything that's left over for you personally is going to be your cash flow, to which there are a few things that you can do with that. You can obviously use it to buy more stocks. You can save it as cash. So there's personal things you can do with it, that cash flow. There are things you could do with it as a business. So I'd spend some time talking about that. And I think you can talk about those things on both a business level and a personal level at the same time. And it really will help connect the dots there, because it's easy to think about these things on a personal level. And then once it clicks there, I think it's easy to transfer it over to the business, because it's more or less the same concept. And then after that, I like your idea of like, okay, here's some money. Now go either budget with it, or maybe I do some of that, but also would say, here's some other money, build your portfolio out of that. Or maybe there's some exercises like, okay, let's find some good stocks. What do you think are some good stocks based on what we learned about financial statements and stuff like that? And that's about as far as I've gotten with it. I'd obviously spend some time talking about what dividends are. But I think that some of those really basic things would go a long way. The idea of compound interest, knowing how to read financial statements, being able to apply that to your personal life. I even think just those couple of things right there would really get people started on the right foot.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've been so hyped up on the so passionately hyped up about mindset. I just stayed glued to that curriculum. But I agree with you. Yeah, factoring in more of the financial aspects, man. What you touched on, I think, is really important. And yeah, look, a part of that are the really foundational pieces to this all, right? Like, don't spend what you don't have. It's such a simple concept, but people, misuse and abuse credit cards, for example. Just
Yeah.
even when you have a credit card,
Kind of like
it's
Pat was
all you
saying
have
here.
to do is not spend what you don't have, and so
Mhm.
a credit people like, here's the thing with Dave Ramsey, and he's like, I hate credit cards. I'm like, you don't have to hate credit cards. just because you fell into bad series of experiences with credit cards. You don't have to hate credit cards. Just be responsible. Don't spend what you don't have. Credit cards can actually be super useful for people. I
Totally.
love credit cards because of points.
Yeah.
Travel to countries for free and based on the points. It's like, so when you're teaching people how to think differently, I don't hate anything. I don't hate day traders. Like some people are like, oh, day trading, I hate it. It's like, well, you hate it because you failed at it. But if you really understand it and you can grasp it and you're good at it, you probably won't hate it. A lot of people in grade school, I was one of them. I hate math. Now I work in finance. So did I really hate math? No, I just wasn't great at it as a kid, because I never did my homework because I would go out into the neighborhood and want to work a job instead of doing homework. Right. So it was like, none of this stuff I actually hated. I just, you come around to learning, and the moment you actually learn about it, you fall in love with it because you're good at it, and it presents an entirely different picture in an entirely different life. So, a lot of this stuff I would just really teach thoroughly. You don't have to fall in love with everything. You don't have to like everything, but you should certainly learn about it. It's kind of like when you ask someone if they like olives. I don't, no hate with olives. I love olives, but
doesn't do it
yeah,
for
see
me.
what I mean? There you go. But like, you can go to someone and be like, hey, do you like olives? And they'll be like, no, I hate olives. You ever try an olive? Nah. I'm like, how do you know you hate olives? Like, you go to, hey, how many are you reading books? No, I don't like reading. Well, what books have you read? Only this type of book, like history books. Did you read all these other books? Because there's, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like teaching people prospectively how to come into work finances. If more people really understood the power of money and what money can do for you, I don't think you would hate, being financially literate. I don't think you would hate a budget. I don't think you would hate a lot of these things that you proclaim to hate is if you come around to learn. By the way, that's even, I don't want to get political, but like politics. Did you really sit down to learn the other side's opposing opinion? Or are you just so narrow freaking minded in your own echo chamber that's why you hate the other side? So we're just seeing more and more of this. And I think they're just extremisms, man. And I think once you come around to just remaining curious, like that's what I started Masters of the Market with. It was like, let me just be super curious what everybody else is doing. I'm like, wow, people got some great ideas, man. And guess what? They weren't all value and dividend investing. And I learned so much. So I would just, even I think a part of that curriculum is like being open, man, different ways of living, like philosophy, it's so important. All of this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's good to keep an open mind and to be able to see both sides. And that's especially true when it comes to investing. If you're looking at companies, you need to be able to understand the bull case and the bear case and make your decision on probably whichever one is stronger. So I think, I don't want to turn this into a whole tangent because it totally could be, but and we've talked about this before, but like investing is such a good teacher for so many things. I think that's one of them. Keep an open mind, be able to see both sides. Not everything is going completely perfect. There's no perfect stock. There's no perfect company. Everything's going to have its upsides and its potential downsides, its pros and its cons, its benefits and its risks. And you really cannot avoid that no matter what you're doing. And so, you got to understand both sides. Man, it is, sorry to total left field statement, but I'm looking out my window. It is pouring down rain here in Las Vegas. Holy cow. Unreal.
Really,
Sorry.
monsoon
I'm just
style.
just about sorry. I know that's out of left field, but I just can't help but notice it. And I love it, by the way. Love it when it rains.
So are you going to go for a run?
You know what? I went on a nice 7-mile run yesterday. It wasn't raining yesterday. It looked like it was going to, but it was nice and gloomy. And it looks like very fall time here right now. So it was awesome. And I love running in the rain. But here's the thing. I'm running and maybe I'll just do it anyway. Tomorrow I'm running a 5K race. And I'm going for speed tomorrow. Like this might be pushing it, but I'm going to try. I want to see if I can do a 5K in under 20 minutes. That's going to be like less than a 7-minute per mile pace. I know I could do that for at least 1 mile. I don't know if I can do it for 3.14, but my goodness, I'm going to try my best to do that. And so I really want to rest today because I've put in some good mileage this week. So I want to rest today and be fresh for tomorrow so I can really, come out guns blazing. So I don't know if I should run.
Yeah, man, I think it's probably good. If you do anything today, like a light jog, like just get your muscles moving. Um, mindset wise though, on that, my approach to all that is if you tell yourself you can, you can. And if you tell yourself that you can't, you can't. But also, guess what? In my mind, trying is I can. So just tell yourself you can, and it's like,
Yeah.
I hear that a lot, man. When I sit down with a lot of folks and they're like, I'm trying to do this. I'm like, well, then you're not doing it. Like I
Well,
just do it,
well, I mean, I struggle with that. And I'm seeing Fast Eddie's comment about Yoda's famous line. And I actually think I said this last conversation. Do not, there is no try. Do or do not, there is no trying. And yeah, I understand that, but I also I'm not going to say I'm going to go run a 4-minute mile because that's for me that's just not physically possible right now. So I'm not even going to say I'm going to try and do that because that's not possible. I think a under 20 minutes. Uh, the reason I say try, and I think it's totally plausible to be.
Why don't you just say this, man? You're just gonna run it under 20.
Well, hold on. Let me get to what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm going to try to do it because it's like on the fringe. I've never done anything close to that before, so I don't even know if it's possible for me to do based on my capacity. I
I
think
think
it's
you
going to
can
be
do it.
I think it's going to be a stretch goal, but I also think it depends on variables that I might not be able to take into consideration right now. Like I could come out of the gate and twist my ankle, and no matter how much I plan ahead, that's going to get in the way of doing it. So and also don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight with the baby. There's just don't know how I'm going to eat. There's just so many variables that are going to go into it. I'm going to do everything I can leading up to that to put myself in the position to where I can do it to the best of my ability. But I just don't even know if that number is realistic for me because I don't even think I've done anything close to that before. I've maybe done, a 7:30 pace, but that in sub 7 minutes is quite a difference. Doesn't seem like it, but that is quite a difference in pace. And so I'm going to try it. It's a stretch goal. Don't know if I'll do it, but I'm going to try. And
I think you
that's
can do
not
it.
going to guarantee. Well, I hope so. I don't know if I can or not. I don't know if I can.
Ryan will be in the hospital by next week.
So,
Gonna run this.
I don't know. Just like saying, at the start of the year, I'm going to try to hit $125,000 in my portfolio. I'm going to do everything that's within my control to get there, but there are things that I will not be able to control. And so if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But also there's just certain aspects that you can't force.
Yeah, I agree. But for the controllables that you can control, I think you could do it.
That's what I'm going to focus on. That part of the process I'm going to focus on to see if I can get the outcome that I'm going for. Yeah.
Who wants to start placing bets that Ryan can make it or he won't make it? Let me know in the chat. We'll get something going.
And so, with that said too, I think my fastest 5K is maybe like 22 miles or 22 minutes, excuse me, for that 3.14 miles. So we'll see. We shall see.
Do this one for the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. If I don't do it, I'm a deadbeat dad.
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man,
we don't even want next week on the deep end. We just forget the whole thing, man.
Oh, by the way, so next week, speaking of next week's conversation before we wrap up, I will be tuning in from Newport Beach. So,
oh man,
the roles are going to be reversed. Ari's going to be at home. I'm going to be out.
I'm leaving, dude. I'm leaving town, knowing that.
Oh yeah, you've got to. Okay, cool.
No, I'll give it to you, man. I have a big, hopefully, man, entry into January. I want to be in East Asia. So we'll see. I'm really in the midst of planning a pretty big trip, as I've spoken about before.
Yeah.
Super excited about that, man. I know the Blossom team's out there right now.
I did see that. Looks like they're lifting it up.
Oh man, it looks amazing.
Any last thoughts, man, before we call it an episode?
Yeah, if anyone has any last minute questions or hot takes that we can answer in about a minute or 30 seconds, throw them in the chat. We'll keep talking for a brief minute just to see if something interesting pops up. I hope something does, man.
I'll keep you guys posted on the time for the 5K too. It'll be interesting to see what it does or what I
This
do.
is tomorrow, Ryan, you're running?
It's like tomorrow evening. So, which is preferable. I think this, I honestly, I think I will have, I think I'll have the setup to be able to do it. I think I will.
Exceptional. So here's a
Oh
great comment
yeah.
that came in.
There we go.
Ryan and
That's
I have
perfect.
the book club. We're reading Retire Often, and we want everybody, literally everybody, to join us for this one because we are going to have Jillian, the author, join us here on the deep end. To be determined whether it will be a big Zoom chat or her just on here with us live. But either way, get the book, read the book, and join along with us as we create now moving forward. I think, Ron, we're going to keep on doing these book clubs because financial literacy, I mean, we spent a whole episode almost talking about it and leveling up, and this is exactly how to do it.
Where are you at with the book? Are you done with it yet? Are you still going through it?
I am about halfway through. I got to be honest, man. I'm already kind of living the lifestyle. Yeah. So it's hard. Like, it's hard for me to get really excited about the book because I'm already living it. Like I've already been living it. So I'm like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Next, you know. I'm reading it though. I enjoy. There are a few areas in which or chapters, which I was like, oh, that's either funny or that's interesting. A lot of relatable, of course, chapters for me. Because again, I agree with her whole concept of retire often. There's a lot of stuff again, like I was bored with only because I already lived the life. But I think it's a great read, and I think more people should have her attitude.
Yeah, I think there are parts of it, not to get too deep into the book yet, but I think there are parts of it, themes that I really resonate with. Like there's basically one section of the book where, and she kind of actually sprinkles it throughout the book, but you know, she really questions the whole, I call it the conveyor belt of life, which is basically go to school, work until you're 65, then, you know, live out your golden years, just retire doing whatever. I really like that she questions that whole way of living. I think that was one of the things that that really prompted me to start investing too, is kind of a way to avoid, you know, kind of get myself off that conveyor belt, work towards getting myself off of that. And I think that's actually something that a lot of us are working towards. So I really appreciate that theme throughout the book. I think that's pretty prevalent and also pretty relevant. And it's interesting because I didn't think of, I really never thought of doing something like this in the book before. But I think it's a really unique take. And, you know, I think I don't know. I think it's cool. I'll just leave it there.
Likewise. And I also want to say happy early birthday, happy early 44th birthday coming up next Saturday to Caesar's wife. And hopefully the both of you, Caesar, I hope you're also reading the book, by the way, not just your wife. But I hope the both of you are able to take this mini retirement soon. And I hope everybody out there is able to read the book and run along with this way of living. I can speak firsthand in saying it's amazing, you know, taking these breaks from work, or, you know, even just the ability, because today now more than ever we can do it, is working remotely. And I had this conversation actually with somebody where we were just talking about some people have the ability to work remotely, but they still just stay in their hometown or, you know, planted wherever they are. I'm saying to myself, what a missed opportunity. You can work wherever you want in the world remotely, and you choose just to stay planted. That's like the opportunity of a lifetime to at least go do things and see things that you really enjoy. But again, that might be a great topic of conversation to have with Jillian while she's on with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got to think of, we should probably start planning what her second book for the book club's going to be. I don't really have any ideas off the top of my head.
Oh man, I got a bunch of ideas, but we'll get through the first one.
We'll get through the first one.
Someone
Okay.
someone in the chat, I think last week, mentioned The Psychology of Money. I feel like everyone's read that book before, though. It's a super popular
Yeah.
book. I feel like
Yeah.
we should be reading books that like no one would really think of here on the deep end. And I do have another really good one that I feel like is under the radar. I have two actually, in which we can easily pull the authors as well. So
Okay.
we'll stick to ones I feel like that are off the beaten path. Although The Psychology of Money is epic, and everybody should read that for sure.
Yeah. Also, everyone should read Same as Ever, which is Morgan Housel's second book. I almost like that one better, to be honest with you.
Dude, if I would love to have Morgan Housel join us.
That'd be awesome. I don't know.
Someone just had him on their podcast.
He kind of makes his rounds. He does kind of make his rounds.
Yeah, we could try to reach out to him.
I do have one, and we'll talk about it off camera, but I do have one potential book we could go through, and I know we could get the author for sure, but we'll talk about it.
Excellent.
So you want to take us into the end zone?
I was going to pass it to you, man.
Okay, we can wrap.
I was going to say with that chat winding down, Ryan, what's the closing remarks?
Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us this last hour and 20 minutes. As always, another really fun episode of The Deep End. And I'm really happy that we've been able to do these live. I think this is our third live stream in a row. And it's been a lot of fun doing this. So thank you guys for all of the support and for taking the time out of your busy weekend to listen to our nonsense and listen to our gibberish. Yeah, with that said, everyone keep up the great work. We'll see what next week brings. Hopefully good things in the portfolios. But everyone stay out of trouble, and we will see you in the next one.